Hey, I want to jump right into this. This is Senate Bill 2006, approved by Florida Governor DeSantis, and I'm reading right from page 22 of the bill, and then I'm going to ask a couple questions. So from page 22, item number 4, and this is concerning Florida State Health Officer. The Florida State Health Officer, what he or she is able to do during a pandemic. This bill has come about post-COVID. In context, this is defining what the state health officer in Florida will be able to do in future pandemics. Item number 4, page 22. Ordering an individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined for communicable diseases that have significant morbidity or mortality and present a severe danger to public health. Individuals who are unable or unwilling to be examined, tested, vaccinated, or treated for reasons of health, religion, or conscience may be subjected to isolation or quarantine. A. Examination, testing, vaccination, or treatment may be performed by any qualified person authorized by the state health officer. B. If the individual poses a danger to the public health, the state health officer may subject the individual to isolation or quarantine. If there is no practical method to isolate or quarantine the individual, the state health officer may use any means necessary to vaccinate or treat the individual. Any order of the state health officer given to effectuate this paragraph is immediately enforceable by a law enforcement officer under S 381.0012. Now, obviously of concern is this any means necessary to vaccinate. If they can't quarantine you, they're saying, look, we may have to vaccinate you. You just don't get a choice. Doesn't matter about health, religion, or conscience or any of that. And if we can't quarantine you, isolate you, we may have to vaccinate, even if it's against your will, because we use whatever means necessary. And that to me means whatever means necessary, right? So let me ask a couple questions about this particular Senate Bill 2006 here in Florida, already approved by DeSantis, I think back in May, early May. I don't know if that means it's been passed into law yet, but I can see where it's been approved by DeSantis anyway. And so a couple questions I'd like to ask pertaining to this particular Senate Bill 2006. It talks about significant morbidity or mortality. What is the state's definition of, quote, significant morbidity or mortality? Also, what is the state's definition of, quote unquote, severe danger? I mean, it's kind of vague and it's not specific. And so what is the state's version? What do they say is significant morbidity or mortality? What is the state's definition of severe danger? Is it 10 statewide deaths a day? Is it 100 people dying in Florida a day? Is it 1,000 people dying in Florida a day? What is their definition of severe danger or significant morbidity or mortality? Because it's not very specific about that whatsoever. The text also mentions isolation or quarantine. He doesn't say isolation and quarantine. He says or quarantine. What is the difference between isolation and quarantine? Because when you use the word or, there's showing a difference between the two. Isolation or quarantine. Now, are you saying they're the same, or are they different? Or specifically, what is the definition? How would that come about? How long could quarantine, furthermore, how long could it last? How long can they legally quarantine you for if they suspect you have some communicable disease that's has significant morbidity? How long can they quarantine you for? A day, 2 days, 3 weeks, a month? I mean, it's kind of general and non-specific on that as well. How long could the quarantine or isolation last? Under what conditions would you be quarantined? Is this in a hospital room? Is this on a military base? Is this in a FEMA camp? Where is this going to take place? And what conditions will you be during that quarantine? What conditions? You couldn't go back home because your wife and kids are there. God forbid you'd be separated from them. But what if they sent you off to a FEMA camp or a military base? Well, you could be here a month. We don't really know. I mean, define more specifically this quarantine and isolation? Where would it be? And under what conditions would you be living in? Would you have access to the television? Could you watch the news? Would you have internet access? Could you have phone access? Could you communicate with the outside world? They're really kind of general and vague on some of these. They're non-specific. What is the definition of quote unquote practical method? It mentions that if there's no practical method to quarantine you, then you may have, by whatever necessary means, we got to give you a vaccination. Define, please, practical method. Because, let me pull back up just momentarily where it says that here. If there is no practical method to isolate or quarantine the individual, there's no practical method to isolate or quarantine. Well, is that saying if there's no extra isolation rooms in the hospital, say, look, the hospital's all full isolation rooms, we just don't have any, hold the guy down and give him a shot whether he likes it or not? Is that what that means? I mean, if I say, look, I got a friend with a remote country farm, he's got a shack on the back of his property, they'll set food a quarter mile away, I pick it up every day, can I do that? I don't want to get the shot, I'll go live in my friend's shack. Is that beyond practical method? They say, no, look, buddy, that's too far away, and you come into contact with people, hold him down, give him a shot. I'm trying to get more definition to this. I'm trying to understand in more detail. It seems to be kind of, the whole bill really leaves a lot to be considered for the imagination. Also, define treatment or treat. It talks about treatment or treating people. Could that include surgery? Could that include experimental pharmaceuticals? Could that include experimental treatments or surgical procedures untested? And remember, the COVID vaccination, at least the one my dad got, the Pfizer shot, it said right there on the paper, it's not been FDA approved. So could they forcibly hold you down, having not found practical method to isolate you or quarantine you, and then give you against your will a foreign substance in your body that is untested, especially in the long term, 5, 10, 15 years. I'm speaking about reproductive harm, cancer, that kind of thing. My cat has had 2 surgeries now. The vaccination they gave him, which ironically enough, my vet says was probably for feline leukemia, has caused him an aggressive form of tumor. We've had it twice, had him into surgery, and it sucks. This next time, I'm not doing it again. I'm not putting the cat through that again. So these are why I'm asking these questions, right? I know that's with an animal and a veterinarian a background, but still, like I'm saying, vaccines, untested long-term, what do we know we don't know? Can they force this untested procedure, an untested pharmaceutical, untested vaccine? How far can this go? It's really it doesn't go into great detail, so I'm only asking questions. Also, one more thing. As far as definition of any means necessary, if I resist the vax treatment, are they going to tase me? I mean, if I physically try to resist, they're going to beat me or spray me with mace? If I say, look, I just don't want the shot, I'll live out in the woods. That's not practical method. Hold him down. And if I resist, are they willing to beat me? Or how far will they go to, they're going to grab my arms and strap me to a hospital bed while they stick the needle in me and give me the shot? Is that how this is going to work? I'm only asking questions, Governor, because I'd like to know in more detail what this bill is really going to mean for the future pandemic, because no one we know about the Wuhan lab, and no one's moving to shut down the weaponization and the gain of function research in these level 4. No one's talking about shutting bioweapon labs down at all, but we're talking about forced vaccination. That's why I'm asking questions. So is it possible, final question, is it possible under this scenario that a mere phone call, perhaps made for revenge, you pissed somebody off, and they say, look, I saw this guy, he was next to someone who had COVID, coughing all over him. Does that mean the state sends a team out to your home, like a warrant, as if you had a warrant for your arrest? Would a team come to your home with a sheriff and a doctor with the needle, and they're there to hold you down and give you the vaccination if they can't reasonably, what's a practical method to isolate you? Could a simple phone call have that done? Question. So these are things, even like when that happened, I could just make a claim. Who's to verify? Who's to prove or disprove? And would that be enough to go and say, look, we got to isolate? Contact tracer said we seen you next to somebody. Look, we're out of isolation rooms at the hospital. Don't go to the place to take it. Hold him down. Give him his shot. Is that what this is coming to? All right, folks, those are just questions I wanted to ask. I wanted to make this one brief. This is like my 10th attempt to record this without too much hyperbole, so I've kept it within the realm of how many minutes over here? Under 10 minutes, and I asked some pertinent questions, but my analysis of this thus far is this is the beginning. COVID-19, whether it leaked out the lab or was intentionally released, we made billionaires, trillions of dollars have changed hands. Many of us believe this was intentionally modified, intentionally released, and that there's another one going to be coming. Call it COVID-25, whatever you want. When the next one comes along, it could be more severe. And under more severe circumstances, would we have this medical tyranny, this medical Nazism, if you will, where you're forced into these experiments is what it amounts to, because the vaccination for COVID is untested in the long term. That is not a debatable a thing. We know for a fact, we don't know in 10 years what these people could have problems, cancers, reproductive harm, so on and so forth. So I'm genuinely concerned, and I would hope law enforcement would have a problem with this as well. This is a horribly worded. The language in the bill is terrible. It's not non-specific. It's kind of general and vague. We need to be much more specific under these circumstances, and especially, like, I know I can isolate, so why would you want to hold me down and stick me with a needle? You know, so that kind of thing. If you can reasonably isolate, that doesn't make any sense at all. And finally, and as I mentioned before, I want to come back to this just for a second. While they're making all these moves to keep us safe here, and if you read my book on Fukushima, you'll know the government hid what they knew about the nuclear plume. Obama jumped in his jet with his family and Steve Chu, and it took an unscheduled trip to South America to avoid the plume. Meanwhile, nuclear plants, the detectors were blowing up. I have absolute proof in my book, 350 pages. They hid that from us. They didn't tell us to shelter in place. Now with COVID, they have. And so the obvious conclusion is COVID was not just releasing a virus. It was a economic attack on small businesses and the families of America, and it's been very effective. They've made trillions of dollars, have changed hands once again, going to their capitalist crony friends. We're left paying the bill. Look at the national deficit. And so COVID-25, I suspect, is going to be the one that's going to be much worse, and you will get a vaccination. This is the beginning, it looks to me, at least in word form right now, approved by Florida Governor DeSantis, that at some point, if they can't get you in a room to isolate you, if hospital rooms are filled up, they will hold you down. The law enforcement cops are going to come, hold you down, strap you to the gurney, and they're going to give you the shot. It don't matter about your religion or your health or your conscience. See, you notice how it says that? They don't care at all about that, folks. All right. Going on too long. Hope you got something out of the video. I will link to Senate Bill 2006, approved by Florida Governor DeSantis once again, and have a look at it yourself. Page 22 is very pertinent, very pertinent. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you joining me for this 10-minute or so video, and I hope you got something out of it. Have a great day. Stay healthy, stay safe. God bless you. This is Patrick Penry. I love you guys. Over and out.